From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Monday, March 24, 2025. A dispute between two high-profile Australian Jewish women over the Gaza conflict and anti-Semitism is hitting the courts, with police applying in Victorian courts for a personal safety intervention order to protect Sarah Schwartz. She runs an outfit called the Jewish Council, which is critical of Israel. That's an exclusive, live now at theaustralian.com.au. Treasurer Jim Chalmers will announce another $1.8 billion in energy bill rebates for households in Tuesday's budget. It's the government's attempt to set up a cost of living election debate with the opposition. Just one sleep to go until the federal budget, and if that phrase gives you the heebie-jeebies, I've brought in the ultimate budget whisperer to explain Anthony Albanese's strategy in holding a budget 2 months earlier than usual. Today, we'll dish up all the bits of the budget you need to know about and work out why we're having a budget at all. National Editor Dennis Shanahan is here. The budget.
Mr. Speaker.
Lots of lofty statements, restraint and responsibility, uncertain times.
This is a budget for the here and now, and it's a budget for the decades to come.
Budgets freak me out a little. I've been around politics since the 1990s and have covered lots of budgets, but I'm not a full-time press gallery specialist. When we go into the budget lockup on Tuesday, which is where we get the embargoed budget papers 6 hours before they're publicly released, I'll park myself next to National Editor Dennis Shanahan and watch him fill it out the juicy bits. The lockup is a Canberra ritual. This is how we captured it here on the front last time.
Welcome to the Budget 2024 to 25 lockup.
Dropping off my phone.
Not bring mobile phones or smartwatches into the lockup. Do not publish, transmit, release or disclose in any manner budget information until the embargo is lifted.
That's a Treasury official reading the rules. We have to sign non-disclosure agreements and hand over all our devices. The internet is switched off. The stack of papers we get is intimidating. It's about a foot high. There's also a stack of press releases where the government brags about all the great stuff it's doing. A lot of budget coverage you'll read is the top line stuff. New spending, how big's the deficit? But the real story, the journalists have to figure that out for themselves. And this is where Dennis comes in.
I was trying to do a quick calculation. This is at least 35, 36 budgets for the Australian on the trot. So after a while, they tend to lose their mystery and their fear and shock and awe, and you tend to look at a few basics. I learnt under the great Alan Wood that there's a couple of pages in the budget, you can go there and you get a very good flavour for what the budget's really about. The other sort of old companion is Paul Kelly, and between Alan Wood and Paul Kelly, I learnt to be able to look at the economics and the political side of a budget, and that's what Paul and I will be doing on Tuesday night.
Now, let's talk about this budget. Normally budgets are held in May, and that's when the last one was held. But this is March, we're having a budget. Why?
Well, it's election. Simple as that. When Anthony Albanese was elected in May 22, the election was always going to have to be held in the middle of May this year at the latest. And to his credit, Anthony Albanese's always said he wanted to go as close to full term as he could. And so what we're looking at is really the long-term plan of the Prime Minister for elections and budgets coming to fruition.
Okay, so let's talk about what this budget is actually for. We've heard a little bit about what's going to be in the budget, a continuation of the energy bill relief that they brought about last time, which hasn't stopped, I might add, power bills soaring by up to $1,000 per household. There's going to be some more help for young people, first home buyers, to get into the housing market. But strategically, Dennis, and tactically, what is this budget going to do for Anthony Albanese?
It was always planned as part of the big economic shift. there was an overall economic plan that by the end of last year, the economy would be showing signs of improvement, inflation would be falling, interest rates would have come down, perhaps by 1 or 2 cuts from the Reserve Bank, and that the government would be going into this year with a growing economy, a better outlook, and be able to bring down a budget and say, we've succeeded, you can't trust the opposition.
So, how's that going? Well, interest rates have fallen once, the headline inflation rate is down, unemployment is low, but prices are still high, particularly the rents, fuel and energy prices that we all have to pay. Last budget, they gave every household a $300 energy bill rebate, paid directly to the power suppliers. This budget will extend it by another $150 up to Christmas. The government said that brought bills down 25% from what they would have been otherwise. But overall prices have gone up so much that the government's not getting a lot of credit for reducing those bills.
I don't think anyone in Australia can look at a gas or electricity bill and say it's less than 25% than what it was last time. So it's just not credible. But at the same time, clearly, the government has been campaigning since January. The Prime Minister has been spending $1 billion a week, promising to spend $1 billion a week, including $8 billion on Medicare, another $1 billion on prescription medicines just last week. So what we're seeing is a big spend-a-thon, because whatever's in the budget, it's going to be what's in the campaign and how the campaign is conducted, which will decide the election.
Coming up, where does Peter Dutton take it from here? So do you expect in those budget papers on Tuesday there'll be a big announcement of some kind about something, or do you think it's going to be, here's some money that we've kept aside and we'll let you know what it is once the campaign gets going?
I think that there will be something. The Prime Minister has previously signalled that they're going to go for a model where people would only pay $20 to $30 a week for childcare. The Treasurer said, no, we're not quite looking at that model, which tends to suggest they're looking at another model. If there is to be a bigger announcement than the energy rebate in the budget, it will be childcare. And of course, he will talk about having better economic management, the economy turning the corner, and voters would be better off under this Labor budget and this Labor government than they would under a coalition government and a coalition budget.
So if it is childcare and we're looking at an election where childcare is a big front and centre issue, is that risky, Dennis, given that people have kids in childcare for maybe 10 years or maybe 5 years and then they move on? They feel like they've done their hard yards and that's it. Is there a risk that some of the economy feels this is not really for me?
There's no doubt about that. The problem, I think, for the government is that for this year, in this election, the over 55s will reach 39% of voters, and that is the largest cohort for the over 55s ever and the largest age cohort in the election. So there'll be a large number of voters more concerned about their superannuation than they are about trying to save money on childcare for couples earning up to $500,000. So I think there is a real danger here that it will be seen to be a continuation of the whole US-style Democrat offerings to the younger, sometimes more affluent people, working couples, than it is to those who are sustaining themselves in retirement or working without government assistance and paying higher taxes.
Now, of course, Peter Dutton gets the chance to make a budget in reply speech where he sets out some ideas of his own. Last year, he used it as an opportunity to talk about nuclear power, small modular nuclear reactors, as a way of changing the conversation to be about what he wanted. If it is childcare in this budget, and we see Jim Chalmers positioning the government as restrained and responsible, but listening again, where does Peter Dutton go?
But I think that what Peter Dutton will do in his budget in reply And the Prime Minister has tried to say, oh, this should be an election manifesto. There are even members of Dutton's own Liberal Party who are quietly saying, oh yes, or no, not so quietly, saying, yes, he should put out a big agenda here. I don't think he will. For the first point, a budget and reply speech is not the place to put out an election manifesto. It occurs late on a Thursday evening. It occurs at the end of the parliamentary sitting. It doesn't get live coverage. And by that time, it is purely a reaction to the budget. So you're already on the back foot reacting to the government's budget. So I think what Peter Dutton will do, as he did with nuclear energy, he'll concentrate on one particular issue, perhaps immigration and the impact on the housing crisis. And he'll still leave all these big policy announcements for the campaign, because so far, while he's been accused of being policy light, and it is absolutely true, he hasn't produced enough policy, I don't think the budget and reply speech late enough on a Thursday night in Parliament is the place to release your election agenda.
Okay, Dennis, I'll see you in the lockup.
See you there, Claire. You'll be next to me.
Thank you. Dennis Shanahan is the Australian's national editor. You can read all Dennis's coverage and all our experts right now at theaustralian.com.au. On Tuesday night, we'll release a special episode of The Front with all the budget bits you need to know and none of the spin. Make sure you follow us right here to make sure you're the first to know.